India is letting the world know that they are open for business. 3 decades of nearly double-digit growth is no small task. This is what China has accomplished and what India is looking to do. Can India become the next China, meaning a global economic darling that drives global growth? China did it for 3 decades and contributed more than a quarter of global GDP expansion over a 30-year period. Now, India is one of the fastest growing major economies in the world, and they have an ambitious plan for further growth. Can they replicate the success that China has had in recent years? So let's deep dive into this. And before we get started, let me just say that if you like content like this, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this and hit that thumbs up button for me. Before we get into India, let's discuss the success that China has had over the last couple decades. Now, China has been a driver in global economic growth dating back to the 90s and even a little before then. And even recently, from 2013 to 2021, China contributed like 38% of global GDP growth. And China benefited from political and economic factors in the late 70s and early 80s. This was a time when globalization was really starting to take off. The Cold War was, at a specific point in its time, and there was certain geopolitical tensions, and China was in the right place at the right time. They took advantage of the globalization that was going on. There was a lot of companies around the world that were looking to cut back on operational expenses. They were looking for cheap labor overseas, and China just had it, in as much of it as you wanted, and they really right place, right time. They benefited tremendously. Companies started to set up shop in China, and decade after decade of growth, cheap labor, mass production, shipping overseas, they really struck gold, and it led to a whole lot of economic growth for them. 3 decades of nearly double-digit growth is no small task. This is what China has accomplished and what India is looking to do. Now, India too finds itself, because we're at a little bit of an impasse, that same geopolitical tension that was around in the 70s and 80s that China benefited from. There is a different type of tension, and it's not the same thing, but between the United States and China, there's certain competitions and things that are going on, access to technologies and certain trade restrictions, a lot of back and forth between these two countries, both trying to be kind of in that number one spot, something that the United States has had for years and years. China, an ambitious up and coming country that feels like, it's theirs for the taking, and it's led to a lot, tariffs and different things. And we won't go too much into detail, but India is kind of starting to creep in. They see an issue that is there, and they are trying to benefit from it. And they've done certain things like the manufacturing of iPhones and different things with semiconductor chips. India has started to gain a market share, not as big as China has in a lot of these different things, but they are starting to creep in because they see that there is tension going on between the US and China, and it could potentially benefit them. Now, India has the second largest consumer base in the world, only to China, and the number or the distance between the two is only set up to shrink as time goes on. India is letting the world know that they are open for business, and they want to be a world leader in manufacturing, exports, and they're welcoming foreign investment in all of these areas. And while India has one of the fastest growing economies and is expected to grow about 7% in 2024, India also faces challenges that China did not have to. We are entering a time where the word is protectionism. So China, kind of got in at the right time when the world was opening up to globalizations. Companies were looking overseas to kind of save on operational costs and to really be more profitable, make more money. We're kind of entering a different time right now where countries are looking to produce within, to be more self sufficient and kind of bring some of the stuff that was once overseas back home. And it's just a shift in the thinking that we're starting to see in the world. And of course, there's still international trade, and companies do a lot of stuff overseas. China does stuff in Mexico, the US is still there. There's still going to be international trade, and there's still going to be companies that are outsourcing, but there is more of a focus on protectionism, having things back home, certain technologies that, if in the wrong hands can be detrimental, not letting it be out there. There's a shift in the world. There's more uncertainty that India has to kind of work through if they want to become the manufacturing giant that China has been for the last couple of decades. They're going to have to work through some things that China did not have to work through. Now, regardless of if India reaches its ambitious goals and becomes this, giant in the manner that China has been for over the last couple of decades, India is still very important to global GDP. They are one of the fastest growing countries, and manufacturing is kind of going in their direction. Now, certain laws and rules on technology that they might have might make it a little bit more difficult for them to get all of the investment or foreign investors that they want, but they have an ambitious goal. But to become like China has from the 90s to the 2010s and so on, I don't know if it's really possible, because we are living in different times. The global conditions are different. Globalization, while obviously it's more advanced now, it's kind of scaling back, and people look at it differently than they used to. I think India is going to grow fantastic, and it's a market to definitely keep an eye on, but I don't know if they can become that global growth darling that China has been. But it'll be interesting to see what they do. If you like content like this, leave a comment down below letting me know what you think. Make sure you subscribe for more content like this, and hit that thumbs up button for me.